Welcome back to episode 31 of the Snatch Chat podcast. You're joined with me, Connor. We're going to go through a bunch of questions. We've got a few on technique. I've just been flicking through these questions and I've got some mindset questions here, which I actually think really good. So I'm looking forward to answer those. A few about programming, technique, mindset. So mindset, technique and programming are the three bigger factors of this week's podcast. You'll be glad to know I am nowhere near as sweaty as I was last week. I've been a little bit more strategic with when to film in this bloody box room that I call an office. So I'm not going to leave it until the end of the week when we've got the hot weather. I'm going to get it done on a Monday, which is today, when it's slightly cool outside. So hopefully I'm not beaten by the third question in. So let's get ourselves started straight away. So, question number one. My clean always looks fine until the bar hits my hip height. Then it crashes forward and I either lose the front rack or can't stand up out of the squat. What is happening at that exact moment? My clean always looks fine until the bar hits my hip height. The bar gets to hip height. Okay, so it almost sounds like if you lose your front rack, that bar is driven out in front of you, which means then it's looping onto you, it's not getting fully on your shoulders, dropping on your shoulders, you end up getting spat out, or you end up catching it on the shoulders, you lose your position, and then it's 10 times harder to stand out of the front squat. So there's probably an element of driving the bar off the thighs in front of you, and also a little bit of a pull on the bar. So we've got to look at getting comfortable in that high hang position. So it's that vertical dip and drive. There's no smashing the bar off the thigh to create the momentum. The momentum comes from that vertical dip and drive that you get in a high hang clean. If you get really good at high hang cleans, say up to 80, maybe even 85%, all you're looking to do when you go back into your cleans is to try and find the dip of your high hang. Okay, so the high hang dip, a little bit of a bend in my knee, my arms stay nice and long, the bar is against the top part of my thigh. That's the point that you're trying to get to in your full clean. And then all you're going to do is execute that vertical jump, just like you were in the high hang clean. We're not looking to smash it off the thigh, okay? That's going to drive the bar out in front of you. It's going to make it harder to get into the front rack because it's going to probably catch the front of the shoulders and slide down. And if it does, and you end up not getting spat out, it's going to make you look like a prawn when you stand out the front squat, making it so much harder to stand it back up. So high hang cleans, get really good at high hang cleans. So you're improving the focus and the awareness of using those legs for the extension of the clean rather than looking to try and find momentum by smashing the bar off you. So question number two. I train well consistently in the gym, but at the moment I'm in a competition or someone puts a camera on, my technique completely falls apart. What is actually going on and how do I fix it? See, I absolutely love this question. And it's because I would say, I'd go as far as to say 75% of the people I coach in person, when I say to them, oh, I'm just going to film this set, you almost guarantee that next set that they're going to do, when they know that the camera is on them, it's never going to be anywhere near as good as the previous sets. The thing is with filming your lifts and even a competition is it's pressure. And all it's telling me is that pressure of, someone's watching, or I've got to do this, I can't fail now because the camera's out. You are focusing so much on the pressure of the external factors, you've now lost internally what you need to do to execute that lift. So the best thing to overcome this is by putting yourself or exposing yourself to these positions where you feel sort of that extra bit of pressure. Feel pressure on the competition platform. You probably need to start doing more competitions to overcome the pressure of the platform. Okay? There's always going to be some pressure on the platform because you've got 3 judges in front of you that's going to tell you it's a lift or it's a no lift. And there's a big audience out there. So there's a lot going on. But weightlifting is a sport of performing 3 attempts when you need to perform 3 attempts. So we've got to somehow manage this extra pressure from an audience. To do so, get yourself in front of that audience. If you don't like filming your lifts because you feel that extra pressure, it only tells me that you need to start filming your lifts more. There's nothing that you can do in your training because you know that your training's going well when you're just training. It is that pressure, that external pressure that is placed on you. So expose yourself to that external pressure. That is the only way you're going to overcome this. Once you get used to it, and it's part and parcel, the camera's on and it's fine, I'm not now focusing on that and I can focus on that lift at hand, winner. Once you go to a competition, know that there's pressure out in front of you, but you're able to maintain and manage that extra pressure. You know you've improved and you can execute a really good competition. But without doing it, without putting yourself in these awkward extra pressure situations, it's always going to be a bit of an issue. Question number 3. I've been told to do pause work to improve my positions, but I don't understand the logic. What do I pause on? For how long, at what percentage, and how often? So that is a very, very vague, generalized question, okay? So pause work 100% is going to help your positions. If you need to improve your lifts in the positions that you hit, pause reps are really good. So if someone has told you that pause work is what you need to do, have they told you where you need to pause? If you're good off the floor in a snatch or a clean and it's that second pull, that mid-thigh into extension, that's the weakness, you're going to pause just above the knee. So then you can look to aggressively snap into extension, okay? Getting comfortable in that second phase. If you find that your hips are shooting in that start position, you might want to pause 1 to 2 inches off the floor to expose those hips shooting up because you won't be able to hold that position and then carry on. So pause reps are really, really good, but you want to pause in the position that you're looking to try and improve. Okay? Yeah, I'm assuming that you're on about the Olympic lifts. Pause squats are going to really help with like force generation out the hole, but it's not necessarily going to help you with the positions needed in the snatch or clean. Maybe in a clean, if you're losing position, you're rounding your shoulders as you stand up, but that almost tells me that is it that the bar is dropping onto you, so you're then collapsing because you can't maintain a position, or is it leg strength? For the most part, I highly doubt it's leg strength, okay? Unless, your clean is very, very close to your front squat max, okay? Yeah, next question. When I catch the snatch in a full squat, my torso collapses forward. The bar drifts out and I lose the lift. My coach says my squat strength is fine. So what is causing this? The biggest thing that I would say here is if you're receiving the snatch, you're collapsing, you're losing position and you're rolling that bar forwards and losing that lift, I would almost suggest, without seeing anything, that this is down to the timing of receiving that bar, okay? The timing of the lift, bracing in that bottom position, maybe that you are passively holding it rather than, actively pushing against that bar. So the first thing that I would say here is that what we've got to try and work on is once you receive your snatch, acting like a statue, punching that bar away from you, trying to keep that chest nice and proud, but it's going to come from you actively punching that bar rather than trying to catch it and hold it soft in those arms. Really think about trying to lift the shoulder blades up and back together, shoulders towards ears, and almost treat the snatch and even the jerk, if it's happening in the jerk, as the ceiling is collapsing and you are the only thing that's holding that ceiling up. You've got to be super active in that lockout. That is probably, without seeing your lift, the thing that is going to cause you to collapse, lose position, roll the bar forwards. When it comes to timing, again, very much what I've just said, you're receiving the bar and you're not bracing straight away. So the thing that you've got to try and do here is almost treat that you've got Medusa in front of you. You know the person with all the snakes in her hair? Is it snakes in her hair? But as soon as she looks at you, you turn to stone. That's how you want to be in the bottom of the snatch. As soon as you hit that squat, stone. I'm strong, I'm punching that bar. There's no movement on that bar. Can I literally hold it? It almost wants to look like a statue of someone in the bottom of a snatch. And that's how you want to hold the bar. Get used to holding that bottom position. Don't try and stand up straight away. Punch that bar, hold the ceiling up, nice strong lockout, hold it for a few seconds and then stand up. Just so you get that exposure to the bottom position and finding a tight position and holding that bar where we need it to be. Okay, next question. I work a shift pattern which with completely irregular hours. Some weeks I can train 4 times, some weeks once. How do I make real progress in Olympic lifting when my schedule is this unpredictable? Okay, so what I would almost look to do here is set out a program where you've got 2 sessions on a weekly basis, okay? So session 1 and session 2, you're going to create a 2 day a week program. The reason is for this is that there's nothing going to get mixed up. Okay, so week 1 you can do 4 sessions. Hang on a minute. So I wonder whether, I'm going to still say this. So I would bring it down to a 2 day a week program. Session 1, session 2. The week where you can do more, do session 3. The week after, you're going to do session 2. So you're not treating your week as Monday to Sunday. You might treat it as Tuesday to Monday, okay, depending on your sessions. So forget that you can do, 4 in one week and then 1 in the other. I would almost look to create a 2 day a week program. The week where you can do 4 sessions, do 3. The week after, you're only going to do 1. And then you're going to create an optional extra session with all the accessory-based movements. So there's no weightlifting in there. It's more about hypertrophy, bodybuilding, things that are going to pack on muscle and help, improve the positions that you can hold in your Olympic lifts, okay? And that would be that 4th session. And you're going to do that every other week. Okay, I reckon that is probably the best way around this. Okay, so 3 weightlifting sessions 1 week, 1 the other. It's going to be a 2 day a week program. So the week where you can do 3, you're going to do session 1, session 2, back to session 1, week after do session 2. So you're getting all your weightlifting in. If you can do a 4th session, I would do all the accessories in that session. Okay, and have that as optional accessory based day. Yeah, that's the way I would get around that. And I've got people in a very similar situation to this. Shift work is really hard, especially when it's like police or fire service, when it's sort of 5 days on, 3 days off, or 6 days on and 4 days off. You can't look at a week as a regular week. You've got to almost look at it of session. When does your working week start? So if it's a 6 days on, when is week 1 or day 1? When is day 6? Train on day 7, and that's yours. And again, that will probably vary as those weeks go on. But having it a 2 day weightlifting split is probably going to really help you manipulate the rota when it comes out. Yeah, that for me is the best way. It's the way that I would tell anyone that I coach with, in a similar situation, how to overcome it. So yeah, next question. I just bought my first weightlifting shoes and expected them to feel completely different. They don't. Is something wrong with my technique, or is the improvement more subtle than people suggest? Yeah, if you're struggling, if you feel quite tight and you can get to like parallel in a squat, they might help you to sink a little bit lower and feel a little bit more comfortable. But if mobility is not necessarily your biggest weakness, weightlifting shoes aren't going to all of a sudden be drastic changes. My technique has improved. It is definitely going to be a little bit more sort of subtle. It's going to help you get into a deeper squat position than you can get without them, potentially, if mobility is a little bit tight. Unless you've got really good mobility, you're not necessarily going to feel that difference. If anything, if you've got really good mobility and you put lifters on, you might actually find that they're detrimental to your positions. You might be able to sit up a little bit taller in that squat because the ankles can, the knees can track over the toes with the extra dorsiflexion of the heels. But again, all of this is pretty subtle. It's not something where you're going to put them on, 10 kilos added onto the bar, and now it's got rid of all your technical issues and you're lifting fine. It's going to be pretty subtle. Okay, question number 7. Olympic lifters seem to almost exclusively do singles and doubles. I'm used to sets of 5 to 8 from CrossFit. Why do weightlifters train this way, and should recreational lifters follow the same approach? So, as a general rule of thumb, weightlifters are probably going to do more singles and doubles because the sport, if they are competitive in that sport, or even if they're not, the sport is down to what you can lift for 1 repetition. So they need to practice that higher weight lifted for singles and doubles, as that's going to have more carryover to a heavy 1 rep max. Saying that, at the start of their program, when it's a GPP block or hypertrophy block, that volume is going to be a lot higher. Probably still would be set to 5 to 8 for snatches and clean and jerks. It might be triples or fours. You might find squats are going to be somewhere between 5 and 8, and pulls are going to be between 5 and 8 reps. But the Olympic lifting movements is generally a little bit lower. They're a little bit more sort of demanding. They're quite taxing on your central nervous system. You are looking, in a sport of weightlifting, you are looking for maximal load on the bar for 1 rep. So there's no point doing sets of 10, in my eyes, okay? Some weightlifters might do sets of 10, but their weight is going to be so much lower. They're going to be able to, slightly adjust their technique. But for me, triples and quads is where you're going to sort of start in a hypertrophy block, higher sets. As the intensity grows, the volume is naturally going to start to come down. But they're always going to have a good block of doubles and singles, because they've got a 1 rep max coming up, which is a 1 rep, and they need to work on finding that consistency up to their current max so they can then push their max forwards. So if you are from CrossFit coming into weightlifting, forget about quantity, focus on the quality. How can you maintain and make sure that the quality stays high? Reduce the volume down in a set. You might have 7 doubles or 5 doubles, 4 singles, sub-maximal, but you want that volume to be so much lower so you can really nail and make sure your technique is clinical, and it's going to have a higher carryover to the 1 rep max. Okay, question number 8. My jerk is genuinely holding my total back. I clean the weight fine, but I consistently press it out or miss it forwards. Where do I even start when the jerk just isn't working? So, I say, there's so many different avenues that we can go down here. First things first, do you sink into that back leg? Or do you find that your back leg is relatively straight? If your back leg is relatively straight, you've got no bounce and rebound into that movement, which is then going to create that double arm bend. The first thing, we've got to make sure that we're utilising that back leg, okay? Sinking into almost like a half lunge position. So back knee lower, it's going to enable me to get a little bit deeper, increase the chances of me catching with my arms locked. If I stay relatively high, the distance the bar travels is reduced, so there's always going to be an element of press now. If I drive the bar upwards and lower my body underneath it, I find a position where my arms are nice and straight. But if I don't, I'm almost having to press it out because I'm not dropping. So you need to drop into that back knee a little bit more. That's the first thing I would say here. The second thing to look at is, how do you go for that vertical dip and drive? Do you find yourself dipping, dropping the elbows, trying to press the bar off your shoulder? If so, open up your hand grip position. At no point do we try and press the bar, okay? That movement wants to be a controlled dip, a big vertical jump out of it before you sink back into that back knee. I'm gonna keep an open hand grip position. So what I'm trying to focus on when I go through that dip and drive is to keep that bar on my shoulders for as long as possible. As soon as I try and press that bar with my arms, the momentum ends, okay? So I want to try and keep that bar on my shoulders for as long as possible. Vertical dip and jump, jump for maximal height, sink into the back knee, find a nice strong lockout. They're the two things that I would look at here. Can you sink into that back knee? If so, how are you doing the vertical dip and drive? Are you pressing the bar? If that is happening, open up your hand grip position. Do not look to grab that bar until your feet have hit the split. They're the two things that I would look at if you are struggling with your jerk. Okay, so my question number 9. My training partner started exactly the same time as me and is already 15 kilos ahead in their snatch total. I know I shouldn't compare, but it's generally affecting my motivation. What do you say to this? Everyone is going to improve at varying levels. I've had a conversation with a client who recently started learning the Olympic lifts with me the back end of last year. She can snatch 25 kilos and clean and jerk 35 kilos. Which I think is a fantastic start. They're the big plates on the bar, maintaining good positions. I'm happy with that. Someone a lot younger than her started weightlifting the start of this year. She's already at a 35 kilo snatch, 40 kilo clean and jerk. So she already looks like she's made better progress in a shorter amount of time. But there's loads of different factors. Age, If you're slightly older, learning the Olympic lifts, your progress is going to be a little bit slower. If you're young and 9 times out of 10 naive and don't think about the what ifs, you'll see that your progress drastically improves at a greater rate of knots. But if you're slightly older, you have a higher focus around, if I do that, I might injure myself. So if I do that, I need to do it tentatively, okay? And it's a hard way of trying to, train that out of you. But really, you're in your own race, okay? Be happy for other people, obviously. But when it comes to your lifting, you can't compare it against anyone. You've got to compare it against how much you've improved in the last 6 months, technique-wise, strength-wise, and the ability to lift more on your 1 rep maxes. If an area in those areas, those 3 areas, if something in those 3 areas is improving, there is progress, you keep focused on that progress. Forget about the only focus point is the weight on the bar. Look at the technique. Look at your strength. They're the 2 biggest things that I would really suggest you have a focus on, and almost hyper focus on these 2 areas so the overall weight lifted doesn't become your main priority. Because if your main priority is the weight lifted, your motivation is 100% going to drop. And if your training partner who you started with at the same time is lifting more, you're now focusing on that, okay? The way I would look at it is going, right, my hips are shooting in that start position. Can I absolutely nail it, okay? Because you might find that they've got a higher level of strength, and that's why they're progressing at a greater rate of knots. But if you work on your technique and becoming more efficient, what you'll find over time, you'll naturally overpass them. Think of the tortoise and the hare. The hare bombed off, but died towards the finish line. If you are the tortoise, constantly making progress, ticking mini wins off on a weekly basis, you'll find that you'll naturally beat the hare because it's the snowball effect, okay? Progress is coming, and it takes time for different people, okay? And then final question, is it I feel like we've absolutely smashed it today. Final question, I train alone at a commercial gym with no Olympic lifting coach anywhere near me. What is the single most important thing I can do to keep improving without proper coaching access? So don't worry about coaching access. You don't need a coach in person. Coaching online is more accessible than it's ever been before. I use an app called Coach Logic. All my online clients, so I'm based in Birmingham, I've got clients in Scotland, I've got clients in New Zealand, America, etc., etc. They send me video feedback. I get back to them within 24 to 48 hours with feedback on their movements, and I never see them in person, or hardly ever see them in person. But they are making insane progress. You don't need 100% always having a coach to progress in the sport. But if you haven't got coaching access and you haven't got the ability to get yourself an online coach, I've got something called the OPTILIFT Performance Lab, which is a free school community. There's loads of resources in there. Technique, technical issues and how to overcome them, down to analysing your movements and how to actually progress your programming. These are all free resources, okay? So what I would say is start expanding your knowledge. Look to expand your knowledge in the area of weightlifting so you then can almost coach yourself. It's not the best of, you're still not going to get yourself the best feedback because you look at your lift slightly different, but it's a start. And if you actually join the OPTILIFT free school community, which I've linked in the comment below, or in the caption below, sorry. Every Friday we do a Feedback Friday. You put your video up, I'm going to analyse it for free, giving you some feedback to actually action the week after. It's a no-brainer. I've literally put in there all the resources that you need to improve your technique and overcome technical faults, and I'm going to actually start assessing your lifts every Friday if you attach a video. And it's a free school community. Start expanding your knowledge, get yourself in that school community. If you haven't got the ability to have a coaching person or get an online coaching program. And as I said, the OPTILIFT Performance Lab free school community is linked below. If you haven't already, it's ridiculous that you've not joined. It's completely free and you've got everything that you probably will ever need to start actually making real progress. That is the end of episode 31 of the Snatch Chat podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Any questions for next week, drop them in the caption below. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to click like and subscribe, and I shall see you next week for episode 32.